Hi, my name is Chris, and here are 5 essential tools for hardware hacking. In the number one place, we have disassembly tools, because without them, you wouldn't be able to open the devices that you want to hack. I would personally recommend a good screwdriver set, some spudgers, tweezers, and some pliers. I also have these side cutters, because you can snip wires or strip wires with them. In the second place, we have a multimeter, because without a multimeter, you would be having a hard time finding ground, finding the target voltage, finding UART, and many more things. So I would personally recommend having one. I would also recommend getting a digital one, because those analog ones are not very useful nowadays to hardware hack. I personally have this digital one, this Kaiwit, or how do you pronounce it? And it has this voltage measurement mode. It is also automatic, so I don't have to rotate the dial to select the range. So voltage measurement. Another useful is resistance measurement and the continuity test. The voltage measurement is very useful when you are finding the target voltage or you are trying to find UART, because you can put one probe on ground and the other probe on the pin that you suspect is the TX line. And if you see fluctuating voltage, it can be UART. So a multimeter is good to have. In the third place, we have soldering tools. With soldering tools, you can do many things like soldering to test pads. You can solder wires. You can repair traces. If you have a hot air gun, you can remove SMD components and many more things. I would personally recommend getting a soldering station with hot air, because you have 2 in 1. So you have the hot air and you have the soldering iron. I would also recommend getting some soldering tips and some nozzles for the hot air gun. Also, I would recommend getting some flux when you are desoldering the SMD components and some solder wire. In the fourth place, we have USB to TTL adapters. With these adapters, you can connect to UART that you found on your devices. And that is pretty much it. I would personally recommend these adapters that have a voltage switch, because you can, if you have older electronics, you can switch to 5 volts, and if you have newer electronics, you can switch to 3.3. This is a FTDI adapter, and I have it in my case. It has these extra pins that you can bit bank if you know how to program, and that's pretty much it. Also, this, as it is FTDI, you don't have to install drivers on Windows if you are using Windows. This one is a CH340, and you need to install drivers on Windows. Also, this adapter doesn't have those extra pins. This one is really hard to see, but it has CTS, DTR, and other pins. This cable is not very useful, but it is also an USB to TTL adapter, but it is only 5 volts. So modern electronics rarely use 5 volts, and they are more likely to use 1.8 or 3.3 volts. And in the last place, we have chip programmers. With these programmers, you can use them, for example, to dump the firmware off of the device that you are hacking. You can use them to rewrite the firmware, and you can do many things with them. For beginners, I would personally recommend getting a CH341. It is pretty inexpensive, and it's pretty good for this price. Just make sure you get the newer one that has the voltage switch on its side, so you can select those different voltages. Otherwise, you would need to voltage mod it, because normally it outputs 5 volts on the data lines. And for 1.8 volt chips, you would need an adapter. Just one drawback about this programmer is that it only supports 8-pin chips. So if you want to program, for example, some TSOP 48, this won't do it. If you want more capable programmer, I would recommend getting a XGECU T48 or the new T56. There is also the T76, but for beginners it is pretty expensive, so I would recommend sticking to the T48 or T56. This adapter can do much more. It also has a bigger socket, so you can use it, for example, to program AVR chips or bigger chips like the 48-pin chips. You will just need a socket for it. And sockets, I would recommend getting a whole bunch of sockets like I have here for example, PLCCs and these SOP ones. They are very useful when you desolder the chip off of an board, and with these adapters you won't need to make your own sockets, so you can just put the chip in the socket. You can take the socket, open the adapter, put the socket in the adapter, and I'm putting it wrong. Close it and you can read the chip. So that is pretty much it for the 5 essential tools for hardware hacking, and I'll see you next time. Bye.